Well, we had a long time ago, one of the guys, Joe, I'm blanking on the name. I'm the one with the senior moment today, which is kind of funny, but we had someone who had written the book on Steve Bannon and had a ton of access to Bannon and the whole, like, basically burn it down, burn everything you can down. And now, a couple of years later, we're talking, I think even a lot of the MAGA quote unquote coalition, these a lot of these voters voted for this because they wanted something different than what was happening, shaking it up, draining the swamp. You mentioned going down the golden escalator. They wanted that shakeup, but to your point, not sure they wanted the true burn it down that like Trump and the coterie around him wanted. How do we, and I know you get into this, how do we draw that distinction with voters? And what is a message that needs to be, there's a big difference between actual change and just burning it down for the hell of it, because there's no plan after the fire right now.
Well, Alex, I think you make a very important point. I think there are a handful, not a large group, but a handful of true revolutionaries around Trump. I mean, Bannon is a self-proclaimed revolutionary. Certainly, Russell Vought at OMB is in that category. Stephen Miller's in that category. These are not people who are trying, RFK Jr. may be in that category. These are not people that are trying to make changes in our system and make it better. These are people who are saying, burn it down, basically. You don't need a government, to do these things that we have assigned to government. And I think most people would believe, if you go from the National Institute of Health to FEMA and go across the board to EPA to science, most people would believe we actually could have a better government, but we certainly need one. And this destruction is designed by people who say we don't need a government, because what we need is for the handful of the wealthiest and most powerful people to run the country without any help from anyone else, without anyone being in the way. And I do think the other thing is that I don't believe that any of the Trump voters, or many of them, voted for this exercise in self-glorification and massive accumulation of wealth. I think that those are things, they want a president who's working for them, not for himself all the time.
Is it that, and I'm curious, Trippi, what you think too, but is it that they didn't, that part of it, the self-glorification and the making, $1.2 billion last year, was it that they didn't vote for that, or they didn't really care as long as the change was happening? And now the change isn't happening, so now they're mad about that too. Like, I feel like there's a distinction there.
Well, that's a fair question. I suppose I haven't fully faced it because the change is not only not happening, the destruction is happening on a large scale. Whether people would tolerate this massive corruption if they were seeing positive change, I don't know whether they would, but they don't have to make that choice because they've got both. They've got corruption and destruction and no positive change.
And so what's the, I mean, in the sense of betrayal, what do you think is driving it more, the economic damage, but also, I mean, the corruption, as you point out, the attacks on freedom, the damage it's doing to democracy, but there's so much kind of, which I think comes from your work in the Senate and other folks who worked in the Senate who helped with the coalition and thinking through the book. There's so many things that they've done kind of sub rosa to doing so much damage to these departments that aren't even functional even anymore. And I'm not sure people understand the totality of the damage that's been done. I think people are starting to understand that the damage being done to our reputation as a nation around the world. But what is the there are signs that people are starting to wake up to how much damage is being done. But how would you put it? I mean, what are how do you calculate the damage and the destruction that's been wrought on our institutions, on departments, and our credibility around the world? And I guess that is, it has to be a massive coalition that rises up and says no more in November.
I mean, look, I think that you've done so many great campaigns, and there's no question that economic issues are always on the mind of everyone. Basically, cost of living and health care, those are always going to be crucial issues. I think candidates are going to be focusing on affordability, and I understand that. But when we looked at it, we said, well, that's true, but these other issues, the destruction of the rule of law, the trashing of our alliances and what we're doing to our national security, the gutting of the federal government, these are all, and basically the attacks on the press and media, and the upcoming, the attacks on election integrity, which have been central to Trump's rise and central to his hold on power and very fundamental to what's happening between now and November. All of these things matter. Somebody said to me, well, you're spreading yourself. The report goes in all these directions and covers a lot of things. And I say, yeah, because a lot of things matter. To some people, the desecration of the East Wing or the Kennedy Center matters a great deal. No one should miss the enormity of the moment, basically.
Yeah, your epilogue is, facing the crisis of our times. And I just wanted to there's one paragraph in it that I just think puts this all in perspective. It does talk about what you said about, the problems didn't begin with Donald Trump. But you state here, no one can deny that significant reforms will be needed to reduce inequality, broaden opportunities for our people, and rebuild our credibility and competitiveness in the world. But there is a vast difference between the reform and vitalization that our country needs and the destruction and division that this administration has wreaked. And instead of following the dictates of a would-be king, we should rely on the talents, creative energy, and common sense of the American people and the strength of our democratic institutions and values to meet the challenge of this singular moment. And I just think there's so much wisdom in that, in the epilogue about, and I think so much as a strategist, as somebody who's helping people run for office, there's a message in there that every Democrat that's the message that we need to not to protect the status quo or to go rebuild the old Department of Education, but to reform. The nation is in urgent need of renewal, of revitalization, and that's a big difference from the destruction and divisiveness of this administration, and that's the change you need to vote for in November. I mean, I think that's something that everybody who's listening should get this book, and get another copy to another activist or somebody that you care about, because and get it to the candidates out there, because I think there's so much wisdom and so much laying out why we were betrayed, and succinctly draws out everything that we did not vote for, including a lot of the MAGA supporters that were with him.